My ex raised a glass in a room built to worship him and compared me to training wheels. People laughed because he made it sound clever, and I set my champagne on a tray and aimed for the exit, already shrinking to fit the joke he told about me. A calm voice right behind my shoulder said, "Do not give him the satisfaction," and the way he said it felt like a hand closing a door gently instead of slamming it. 2 weeks later, that same man introduced me to half the city as his fiancée. Yeah, that happened. And I know it sounds like a movie, but this is how it actually went down. The invitation showed up wedged between a past due power bill and a box of welding rods, thick cardstock, that pretends to be important just by being heavy Grant Technologies. 10-year celebration in embossed silver, the kind of party where the air smells like lilies and money, and everyone wears a smile that doubles as a mirror. I told myself I was not going. Told my friend Jules the same, except my hands kept working in the studio like my body was making the decision, while my mouth performed resistance. The shipyard wind pushed through the rattling door, the grinder threw a necklace of sparks around my boots, and the small steel bird on my bench began to look like it might lift off if I breathed on it. Jules cracked open a plastic box of grocery store sushi, looked at the invite like it was contaminated, and said, "He wants to erase you with applause. Ava, do not hand him the eraser." And I said, "I am not going," but I was already thinking about the dress that felt like armor, the slate blue one that lets me stand up straighter even when I want to fold. The Rainier Crown Hotel lobby hummed with violins, glass and light everywhere. People who rent their warmth by the hour. And there he was at the center of it, Lucas Grant with dimples that do half the heavy lifting for his personality, Sloane Whitaker beside him. Perfect posture, diamond smile, everything polished on purpose, you know what I mean. I made it to the bar and ordered water so cold it hurt my teeth, told myself to count the tiles and not the stairs. And Lucas drifted over, carrying that charm he flings like confetti, soft voice pitched to carry. "Ava is my starter story, every founder has one." And then he paused for the punchline. "He loves in tech you cannot scale with training wheels on." At some point you upgrade, which landed like a well-timed slap. People laughed because they always laugh when the rich make cruelty sound like efficiency. I put my glass down and went for the exit. Shoulders tight, throat full of sand. And that is when I heard it. Do not give him the satisfaction, not a command, a suggestion with a spine. And I turned to see a man who looked like he had been invited to the party, but did not need the room to know it. Dark suit, cut, clean hair, careless where it fell, eyes that were awake in a way most eyes forget to be. "I am Elias Hart," he said. "And if you live on this coast, you know that name, the energy guy who puts his money in wind and schools and never in champagne pyramids. And here is the part that made my ribs loosen. I have seen what you make the Kestrel at arc light. It cut air, which is not a sentence people throw around unless they actually felt it. And I felt seen without being put on display, a very rare thing in a room like that." We stepped out to this terrace where the night carried the harbor. In its mouth, the speech thundered behind glass, and Elias said, "He is performing. You do not have to stand in it." And when I said I left Lucas like a confession, I still owed. He corrected me quietly. "You escaped, which is planning, not panic." And for the first time that night, my lungs remembered how to work. He walked me to a car that did not announce itself with a badge, and did not ask to follow me up to my studio. He said he sat on the board for the Civic Arts Center, and they were commissioning an atrium piece that one of their curators had been pushing my work for months, that his office could set a meeting. If I wanted it, no flattery, no pity, just a door he was willing to unlock if I wanted to walk through. The email landed the next morning like a clean bell, proposal, nothing dramatic. And a week later I stood in an office that could have been cold, but wasn't, because the walls held work chosen by a person who listens more than he talks. Dr. Naomi Patel from the Arts Center, and a board member named Owen Kim sat across from me, while I sketched with my hands and words 3 forms, not birds exactly. Motion and heat, the way a body remembers fire, but chooses flight anyway. And when I finished, Naomi smiled like she had been waiting for a lock to click, and it finally did, commission approved, so simple and so huge, I had to grip the back of a chair and breathe like I had just lifted my welding mask after a long seam. It could have ended right there, me in a studio that leaks when it rains, steel cooling to dull red, a calendar full of work, but Elias asked me to stay while the others left. Poured water, looked down at the toy cars on the street, and then at me and said, "I need to put something on the table. Lucas has been sloppy, leveraged in ways that hurt people who didn't buy the yacht. I have people watching the numbers. This will go loud soon, and because of the commission, he will see you standing near me. If you want to step back until it settles, I will understand." And I looked at the skyline, hunting for instructions, and found only my own name. "I am tired of letting him decide where I belong," I said, and Elias nodded like he had already guessed my answer. Then he suggested something that sounded insane until it didn't. "The Harbor Lights benefit at the Piermont Conservatory was 2 weeks out," he said. "Lucas would come because applause is his favorite drug. If he tries to put you back in his pocket, I will introduce you as my fiancée. It is a social gambit. It places you outside his jurisdiction." Angry men telegraph their next move, and I laughed because sometimes the only way to survive a ridiculous system is to use its tools on purpose, a fake engagement for protection. And the truth, you are not his relic, you are an artist with a public future. We will announce that in a language this room pretends is the only one it understands. I went home and cut metal until the sparks wrote my name on the floor. Jules watched me work and said, "Every woman fakes something for safety, a laugh, an apology, a smaller opinion. If faking a title gets your name back, do it." So I did. The Piermont greenhouse glowed over the bay like a ship that forgot to dim its lights. I wore black that did not ask permission to be simple. Elias offered his arm like a threshold and not a leash. Heads turned, because his do not usually, and we made slow circles through a room full of people who judge value for a living. He introduced me by my work and not my past. The curator who remembered my 2-person show at a community center squeezed my hands and said, "I knew you would surface," and I felt the floor move until it found me level. Lucas arrived late with a tan that was telling on him, saw me next to the one man he could not buy or bulldoze, and his face did the math. He came over carrying the kind of smile that hurts heart. "I did not know you had a taste for fixer-uppers, and my body did that stupid old flinch my brain has been trying to train out." Elias set his hand low at my back, not possessive, an anchor. "Lucas, you are interrupting an evening with my fiancée," he said almost gently, and the word cut the air clean enough that the nearest donors turned like weather vanes. Lucas laughed first because he hates falling and tries to jump before the drop. "Your what end?" Elias didn't raise his voice, "My fiancée." Then he did the single most disrespectful thing a man like Lucas understands. He turned his body away and asked me how I hammered the curve on the largest form without buckling the sheet. We talked shop. The circle around us shifted its attention like a tide, and Lucas faded the way every bully does when no one feeds him the lines. By morning, the gossip pages hummed, the Arts Center inbox swelled. My phone shook itself across the workbench. The Hart Foundation comms team did not confirm or deny a thing because silence is sometimes the most fluent language. And a week later, the SEC spoke in their own careful dialect. Potential irregularities, investigation underway. Yeah, that happened. And I did not dance because this is not that kind of movie. I went to my studio and worked because steel is honest, and if you rush, it cracks at the lie. We let the arrangement breathe, no rings, no press releases, just evenings where the triptych grew wings, and Elias told me about a childhood library his mother loved, and how he learned to keep lights on for rooms that teach kids to name the world. We talked about power, and he said real power points away from itself. We talked about perception, and he said, it can be a leash if you wear it, or a lasso if you throw it. And when Naomi cried seeing the first two forms on their temporary mounts, I put my cheek against the cool metal, and finally believed I had rewritten a room, and not just escaped one. The night before the unveiling, I took the ferry, and let the wind remind me what small feels like when it is not humiliation. The next day, the atrium filled with people who brought their own noise and then got quiet in front of the work. Jules cried on my shoulder. Naomi hugged me hard. Elias stood with his hands in his pockets, wearing the expression people wear when they know words will only make the things smaller. And we could have kissed because another story would insist on it. But I took his hand for a second and then let it go. I wanted the moment to belong to the steel. So here is my question for you, because I know some of you are already typing. Would you have taken the fake engagement? Was it wrong to fight a performance with a performance? Or was it the only language that room listens to is using perception as a shield, just another version of the game? Or can it be a way to step out of it? Tell me where you land, and tell me the rooms that tried to make you small, and how you walked back in taller. If this hit a nerve, hit subscribe and share it with someone who needs to hear their name belongs to them. We have more to talk about. Power, kindness, and the quiet work of building a life that holds.